10 miles north of Santa Clarita, California, in San Francisco Canyon, the St. Francis Dam was built by William Mulholland as a secondary water source for the city of Los Angeles. Construction took place between 1924 and 1926. The dam itself functioned from 1926 to 1928, holding back a reservoir of 12.4 billion gallons of water. At its highest point, the dam was 185 feet above the valley floor. In the 2 years since its construction, various leaks began to appear, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary until 11:57 in the evening of March 12, 1928, when the dam catastrophically failed, breaking up and unleashing a 120-foot-high wall of water into the San Francisco Canyon at an average speed of 18 miles per hour. It traveled 54 miles through the towns of Fillmore, Bardesdale, and Santa Paula before dumping its victims and debris into the Pacific Ocean near Ventura, California. Nearly 500 people died, some bodies never found, and the city of Los Angeles paid out millions in claims to survivors. The dam's chief engineer, William Mulholland, went on trial, took responsibility for the failure, and he was eventually exonerated, but died from a stroke in 1935, a broken man. In the 91 years since the dam burst, nature has reclaimed much of what existed there in the 1920s. And if you didn't know where to look, you would have difficulty finding the dam site. What is surprising, though, is how much still remains in the 1.5-mile stretch between the dam site and the DWP Powerhouse number 2. These images are an attempt to capture both the beauty of the area, but also the silent reminders of the worst man-made disaster in California history. About the only way that anyone would ever know that there'd been a dam in San Francisco Canyon would be if they noticed the fenced-in historical marker next to DWP Powerhouse number 2. What makes this site significant is that the previous Powerhouse number 2 was liquidated by the wall of water that ripped through this canyon on the night of March 12th. All that was left were 2 turbines that had been inside the station. The building we see here now was rebuilt after the flood. One of the turbines in this old photo was actually salvaged, restored, and put back to work in the new powerhouse. This peaceful stream across the street is the San Francisco River, and this was the pathway for the 120-foot-high wall of water that tore through here in 1928. Here we are at the north end of the old road, which has been blocked off on both ends. It was replaced by a new road around the valley after the original suffered storm damage a number of years ago. In this view, we are actually seeing the backside of the canyon where the dam was located. And if we were here prior to March 13th, 1928, we would be completely underwater. As you can see, nature has gradually taken over this section of land, and its resident lizards, tadpoles, and birds are oblivious to what took place here so many years ago. Now we are in the canyon where the dam once stood. This is what it looked like with the dam, and these images are how it looks now. In this wide-angle photo, I have made an overlay to show approximately the area that the St. Francis Dam spanned. The east side of the valley consists of gray Pelona schist and is where the parts of the dam began to come apart due to pressure applied by a landslide that had been occurring behind the dam. The west side is the red Sespe sandstone that is subdivided by an earthquake fault. This held the left side of the dam until it started to break up due to the increased pressure from the buildup of water from the landslide. Within minutes, both sides of the dam failed, leaving only a center section of the dam in place that came to be known as the Tombstone. Some of the giant sections of this dam were washed a mile downriver into the valley below. What remained of the dam was this center section and the retaining wall along the upper ridge of the west side. I climbed to the top of the ridge to photograph the remains of the concrete wall, which are in rough shape but are still there in sections. It should be noted that within a year of the dam break, the Tombstone was dynamited by the city of LA for a number of reasons. First, an 18-year-old boy fell to his death from the slab. Second, it was becoming a macabre tourist attraction. And third, it was a constant reminder to the city that it was responsible for a civil engineering project gone horribly wrong. What remains on the floor of the valley are huge chunks of concrete, which have eroded enough that a person could mistake them for rocks until they spot the pieces of steel rebar poking out of them. Also, if you look down on the floor of this valley from the west side, you can make out the partially buried cross-section of the steps that were part of the famous profile of this dam. In this shot, we start on the stream flowing through the base of the remains of the dam. Then we pan up the east side to the concrete remains of where that side of the dam attached to the hillside. Then sweeping across, we end at the approximate point on the west side where the dam was attached. From some angles, you can see a steel pipe reaching out of this hillside for a dam that is no longer there. Halfway between the powerhouse and the dam site is this picturesque valley where you can make out the remains of the original road that traveled through this area. You may also notice what appear to be large rocks on the valley floor, but turn out to be massive chunks of concrete washed downstream from the dam. At one time there were houses and a work camp in this location, but all were wiped out along with their residents by the flood. You can see in this period photo taken from the backside of the tombstone looking south how much of the area was obliterated by the surge of water. Here is a photo of my girlfriend Juliet, who is standing on top of one of the smaller chunks of concrete dumped here on the night of the flood. It is interesting to get a size comparison and to still see the rusty pieces of pipe sticking out of this piece. Here's another shot of concrete pieces near the San Francisquito River, and as I pan over you can see how this concrete was mixed. Mulholland insisted on using local gravel from this valley in the mixture to save money and time in the construction of the dam. Mixing local gravel was not an unheard of practice, and many of Mulholland's other structures, such as the California Aqueduct, were built this way and are still standing. We end on something that Juliet found that really shocked me when I saw it. Here we have a massive chunk from the west side of the dam that was washed nearly a mile from its source. It is probably the best remaining example of the stair-step profile of the St. Francis Dam, just sitting in the stream, gradually being overgrown by plant life. It's been 91 years since the collapse of the St. Francis Dam, and much has changed, but surprisingly, much still remains. In 2018, the area was named a National Historic Site, so it will now be protected and this human tragedy will not be forgotten. In fact, the St. Francis Dam disaster is the reason that California has the toughest dam construction and maintenance standards in the country. I recommend visiting this place, and thank you for watching.